All right, so picture this. It's Baker Street, 1971, but we're not talking about like the Sherlock Holmes Victorian era, right? This is modern London. And there's this incredible heist about to go down. Of all places, Lloyd's Bank.
Yeah, yeah, and not just any heist, right? We're not talking about some simple robbery here.
No, no, no. This is some serious, like, out of a movie stuff. They actually tunnel into the bank vault. I mean, how crazy is that?
It's wild, and the amount they got away with is, well, it's a bit of a mystery, actually. Some sources say 1.25 million pounds. Others claim it was closer to 3 million. Huge sums, either way.
And the really crazy part is they only recovered a fraction of it, like 231,000 pounds. Where'd the rest go?
Right. That's a question that still hangs over this whole thing.
So that's what we're going to dive into today, the 1971 Baker Street bank robbery. We're using the Wikipedia entry as our main source so it can really break down the details.
We're talking about how they pulled it off, who was involved, and what mysteries still remain.
Buckle up, because this is going to be a wild ride.
Yeah.
So, got to start at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
The mastermind behind all this was a career criminal named Anthony Gavin.
Yeah, and get this. The whole plan was inspired by a Sherlock Holmes story.
Wait, really? Which one?
The Red-Headed League. It's about this group of criminals who, you guessed it, tunnel into a bank.
So this Gavin guy was like a literary thief or something?
Well, he certainly had a flair for the dramatic, that's for sure.
I'll say, but you don't pull off something this big on your own? Who else was involved?
Well, first, Gavin needed someone to scope out the bank, gather intel. Enter Reg Tucker, a used car salesman with, get this, no criminal record whatsoever.
The perfect inside man.
Exactly. And Tucker was meticulous. He opened an account, rented a safety deposit box, and visited the bank 13 times.
13 times just to case the joint.
He was measuring the vault's interior using his arm span, an umbrella, even those little floor tiles.
That is dedication.
It's more than dedication, it's obsession. He even noted the furniture layout. Every tiny detail mattered.
Wow. So, okay, reconnaissance is one thing, but they needed some serious equipment to pull this off. Who handled that?
That was Thomas Stevens, another used car salesman, also with a squeaky clean record. His job was to get the tools, and I'm not talking about screwdrivers and hammers.
Oh no, this is heist level stuff, right?
We're talking thermal lance that's like a super-powered blowtorch that can cut through thick metal, and a 100-ton jack.
Where do you even find that kind of stuff?
Not your average hardware store, that's for sure. Then, of course, they needed a lookout. That was Bobby Mills, a friend of Brian Reeder, although Reeder denies any involvement to this day.
Interesting. Anyone else?
Oh yeah, an explosives expert, naturally. And Mickey Skinny Gervais, an alarm specialist.
They were assembling a real A-team of, criminals.
And there are whispers of two more shadowy figures, known only as Little Legs and TH. Apparently, TH had connections to a corrupt Scotland Yard detective. Now that's a little scary.
Yeah, that's not good. Inside help. That makes this whole thing even more dangerous.
Definitely adds a layer of intrigue, right? But then there's Benjamin Wolfe, a 64-year-old trinket seller. He's the one who leased the leather goods shop, Lissac, just 2 doors down from the bank. He paid a hefty sum for it, too.
Lissac. So that's where they started the tunnel.
With bingo. He paid 10,000 pounds for the lease, convinced that the basement was on the same level as the bank's vault.
It was all riding on that one assumption, huh?
That's right.
So, the stage is set. They have the plan, the team, and the location. Now comes the hard part, actually pulling it off.
And right off the bat, they get a lucky break. There were roadworks happening nearby, and all the noise had messed with the bank's vibration alarms.
So they were basically deactivated. What a stroke of luck.
Well, some sources suggest it might have been more than luck. There's a theory that someone from the security company tipped them off.
So maybe they had some inside help after all. That's kind of disturbing, actually.
It certainly raises some questions. Anyway, with the alarms out of the picture, they started digging. August bank holiday weekend, 1971.
So they were only working weekends to avoid suspicion.
Exactly. Can you imagine the amount of work involved? Digging a 40-foot tunnel, all in secret?
It's mind-boggling. They must have been exhausted.
Oh, absolutely. Gavin himself apparently lost like 2 stone, that's almost 30 pounds, during the digging.
Oh, talk about commitment.
The initial hole they made in Lissac's floor was only 15 inches wide.
That's tiny.
I know, right? And they had to get through 6 inches of concrete. Imagine breaking through that.
So they dug this tunnel, 40 feet, under a chicken inn, no less. Talk about risky.
Risky is an understatement. And they ended up creating this space beneath the vault, 7 feet by 4 feet by 5 feet.
Big enough to work in, I guess.
Oh, yeah. And here's the kicker. They moved all the dirt, over 8 tons of it, back into Lissac, bit by bit.
No wonder they were exhausted. They were basically human earth movers.
In court, someone actually described the tunnel as a magnificent work of engineering. I mean, even the prosecution was impressed.
So they get under the vault. What then? It's not like they could just knock on the door.
Of course not. This vault was serious business. 3-foot thick, reinforced concrete. Their first plan was to use the 100-ton jack to break through.
That sounds like a brute force approach.
It was, and it failed miserably. They hadn't counted on an old well being right under the tunnel.
An old well, like with water and everything.
Yep, threw a wrench in their plans, literally.
Okay, so plan B. What did they try next?
The thermal lance, you know, the super blowtorch.
Right. Did it work?
Nope. This vault was tougher than they thought, so they had to get creative. Or, well, destructive. They drilled holes into the vault floor and packed them with gelignite.
Gelignite. That's like serious explosives, right?
Oh yeah, powerful stuff. They timed the blast with traffic noise on Saturday to cover up the sound.
Sneaky, so they finally broke through.
They did, but it wasn't pretty. A 12-inch hole, which they then widened to about 12 by 14 inches. That was their way in.
That's a tight squeeze. But they were in. They were about to score millions. Except they had no idea someone was listening in on their every word.
And this is where things take a turn for the unexpected. Around 11 p.m. on that Saturday night, a radio enthusiast, Robert Rollins, picks up their walkie-talkie chatter.
A radio enthusiast. How far away was he?
Half a mile. Just imagine sitting at home, fiddling with your radio, and suddenly you hear, "We're in the vault, got the loot."
I'd probably think I was going crazy.
Right. That's exactly what Rollins thought at first. He actually called the police thinking it was a robbery at a tobacconist.
A tobacconist? Really?
I know, right? Totally off the mark. He calls the police around 11:30, but they don't believe him.
You can't blame them, can you? It sounds pretty outlandish.
Well, luckily, the officer he spoke to suggested he record the conversations, just in case. That was a good call.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
what was on those recordings? Were they just chatting about the weather?
Oh no, these were tense conversations. You could hear the stress in their voices. They were worried about the fumes, wanted to take a break.
I bet it was stifling down there.
At one point, the lookout actually threatens to leave.
Yeah.
He's like, "Money, it may be your god, but it's not mine, and I'm fucking off."
Drama. I can picture it. Were they panicking?
There's a woman's voice and another guy who sounds like he's in charge. They talk him into staying.
So they had a leader, huh?
Seems that way. And they even mention they've already cleared out 90% of the easy safety deposit boxes.
90%. Wow, they were working fast.
By 2 a.m., Rollins was convinced this was the real deal. He called Scotland Yard directly. This time, they took him seriously.
Good for him. He basically cracked the case wide open.
The flying squad was sent out, and they stayed with Rollins, listening to the gang's every word. They even heard them thank the lookout for not running off.
Wow, they were cool as cucumbers, weren't they?
It's almost unbelievable. A waiter at the Chicken Inn even heard noises from the bank, but no one connected the dots.
And the last transmission Rollins heard was, "Would you like to change to the other channel?" Over. That was their signal to leave, apparently.
That's right.
So the police were waiting for them, right? Ready to make the arrests.
Well, not exactly. They contacted the bank and security companies and started checking banks in the area. When they got to Lloyd's Bank at 3:30 on Sunday afternoon, the vault looked completely secure.
Wait, so the gang was already gone?
Most likely, the police think they were tipped off by the lookout and just stayed quiet until the coast was clear.
That's a close call. So what was the damage? How much did they actually get away with?
They emptied 268 safety deposit boxes. That's about a quarter of what was there. But they didn't touch the main safe, which is interesting.
So they were specifically after what was in those boxes. And who knows what was in there?
Lord Hailsham, the Lord Chancellor, even had a safety deposit box there. The estimated value of the stolen goods is, well, it's all over the place.
Anywhere between 1.